last two mean questions went, if the average from January to September was 630, you've had 9 months with an average of 630 and 3 months with an average of 810. Why is there more accidents in October to December?
Winter.
Because of winter. So it averages to 675 accidents per month. Same idea in this question. We've got 100 mathematicians separated, 72 men, 28 women. The men have a certain height, the women have a certain height. To find the average of all the participants, there's 72 with an average height of 1.79, 28 with an average height of 1.62. So we have a mean height of 1.74 meters. That's in centimeters? I should, not quite sure. I have to pull up my wallet. So the median is the term right in the middle. And so the first thing we need to do is rearrange our data One thing I do when I rearrange my data, I put all my data points down, rearranging them in order as I saw them, hoping that I didn't miss a value. But when I was done, I counted how many I had, just to make sure that it matched up with how many were there. And now in this case, there's 9 terms. Which one is going to be right in the middle? The 11. Notice there's 4 terms on the left, 4 terms on the right. So in this case, our median is 11. Good questions coming up. In our next set of data, I'll do this one in green, 17 first. There is no number in the middle because with an even number, it happens to be right there. So the way that we calculate our median is the average of those two values. So in this case, the median would be 29. I'd like you to quickly put these 6 values into your calculator and see if you can get your calculator to tell you your median is 29 as well. One of the things that we're going to do a lot this year is look at a question and try to determine, can I do it faster on my calculator or can I do it faster in my head? So we need to be adept with how do we get stuff like this with our calculator? How do we get stuff like this in our head? And this one wasn't too bad to figure out 29 was the median in our head. What would we have to do if we went to our calculator? Hit our stat button, go to edit. You might have data in your lists. Does everybody know how to clear their data from their lists? The safe way and not delete everything? Okay, the safe way is you push clear and then down, clear and then down. And so here our data was 17, what was the next number? 22. 17, 22, 28, 30, 50, 54. Once your data is in, you can also go to the statistics button to do all of your calculations. We only have list 1. We don't have anything in list 2, so you can delete list 2. And go to calculate. narrowed down to get to the median, and it does show up as 29. So we've learned the definition of mode, the definition of mean, and the definition of median. For statistics, when we say the range is 8, that means that the smallest value might be 2 and the largest value might be 10. The smallest value might be 4, the largest value might be 12. So different than a graph, where when you talk about range, you actually list smallest to biggest value. In statistics, when we talk about range, we just say the difference between the biggest and the smallest value. This is a problem-solving question. Take a couple of minutes and see how much of it you can figure out. So we're having 4 numbers, P, Q, R, and S. I'm just going to put... Okay, the space arrived. I'm just going to put... Oh, I'm frozen. That's why I was like, lately my screen has been freezing up, and my pens still work, but white ink only. Or maybe it's... no, they don't work. So it's really frustrating, so I was going to... thought it was broken. But we're going to put 4 spaces here. And we know that this goes from smallest to biggest because we have P less than or equal to Q, less than or equal to R, less than or equal to S. We know that the median is 7, so we can say the median goes right there since we have an even number. That means the average on either side of that has to be something that averages to 7. Could be 8 and 6, could be 7 and 7, could be 9 and 5. But in this case, because it tells us our mode is 7, that 7 has to happen the most amount of times, I saw that most of you were able to figure out that these 2 middle numbers had to be 7. And then walking around, I noticed that because the range is 8, people were just plugging in numbers here, like I'm going to try 3 and 11, and use that to see if my average works out to 8. If it doesn't, I'll use 4 and 12. If that doesn't work, I'll use 5 and 13, and so on. So I saw that. My question is, did anybody come up with an algebraic way? What did you come up with?
You said that because the range is 8, but like S would have to be P plus 8, right?
Okay, so you, instead of using, because this is technically still P and S, right? But instead of using S, he's saying I can use P plus 8 instead. Because whatever S is, it has to be 8 more than P. At this moment, if I add up all of these, I'm going to get 2 P's, 14 plus 8 plus 22. That apparently divided by 4, because that would be my average, equals 8. Does that make sense? In this case, the guessing and checking probably doesn't take too long because there's not too many numbers. But in a lot of situations, that's what algebra is for. It allows us to take something we don't know that we would be guessing and solve for it. From here, you can multiply both sides by 4, get 32 and subtract the 22, you get 2P equals 10, which tells us that P is equal to 5. So we know this one is 5, and that one is 13. So it's nice to see the algebra. Okay? Some of you probably said, I added things up and I knew it had to add up to 32, and use that. Yes?
I thought that range meant that it could only go up to 8.
No, the range means that the difference between the biggest and the smallest one is 8. Yeah, so we have to take the range is a little bit different than what you were thinking of as range, y values, when you're thinking about graphs. So it's not going from 0 to 8, but it's actually a difference between the smallest one, and the biggest one. Now, if we were only allowed to go up to 8, things get really tricky really quick to make everything else work. Oops. Here's marks on our test. An IB test out of 7. Nobody got 6. Nobody got 7. Nobody got 0. The median is 3 and the mode is 2. That means there are 2 possible values of P. So these last questions, question 2 and question 3, are questions where in statistics they're taking the definitions that you know for mode, median, and mean, and saying, do you really understand them? Because we're going to complicate the math a little bit. So in this question, how many students were there? 15, 17, 23. There's 23 plus P students. We need the median to be 3. So we need the middle value to be here. If P is 0 and you have 23, which one is in the middle? And this is actually a good thing to think about right now. How do you find the middle quickly? And we talked already about if there's an odd number, there is one that is exactly in the middle. Right? If you have 3, number 2 is right in the middle. That's easy to see. But you have 23, how do you find the one that's in the middle? Can you figure out a way to quickly find the middle one? With 23, it's the 12th one. How did I figure that out quickly? Divided by 2. So 23 divided by 2 is 11 and a half, and then you round up. Okay? That might work. In fact, for odd numbers, it would work. The other thing that's often done so if I take that idea, because if I have 3 terms, I add 1, I get 4, divided by 2 is 2. 2 is the middle term. So we can create a sort of the median number, how many terms you have, add 1, divided by 2. Technically, that will tell you the same thing for odd terms, right? If I have an odd amount, so if I start with, an even amount, if I start with 24 terms, I add 1, which is 25, divided by 2, I get 12.5. That's telling me I need to take the average of the 12th and 13th term. So that being said, right now, if P is 0, it's term 12, and term 12 hits me at 2, and my median wouldn't be 3. What is the minimum number that P could be so my median will fall into 3? Does it make sense that the median has to be at least the 16th term? Because we have our 16th student. Because we have 5 students here, 10 students here. This is 15 students already. So the smallest median could be is the 16th person. If it's the 16th person, how many terms would we need to have a median at the 16th person? If you had 31, if there are 31 students, and I use this formula, does that make sense? If there are 31 students, then the median would be the 16th student. Okay? And so we need to have at least 31 students. What does that tell us about P? P has to be bigger than or equal to 8. And that's just using the first bit of information. The mode is 2. That also tells us something about P. What does that tell us about P? It's smaller than 10. Can it equal 10? No. Because if it equaled 10, this data would have two modes. It would be called bimodal. So now we have two different inequalities that we figured out for P. And as a result, what are the possibilities that P could equal? Could equal 8, and it could equal 9. And those are the two possible values of P. Again, some thinking. Which one is the harder thinking? Obviously median. The mode part was really easy to get that inequality that P had to be less than 10. But we had to do some thinking about what the median meant in a little bit more of an abstract situation. So a question like this really asks you, do you understand what it is? Not just, can you find a median? Because those are two different things. In mathematics, there's questions that say, can you find the x-intercept? And then I can make a question that says, do you really understand what an x-intercept is so that you can solve this question? The IB likes that second type of question better. Okay? They're never going to say, what is the definition of median? What is the formula? They're never going to ask you things that you have to regurgitate. But they are going to ask you a question that says, do you understand what it means? Because without that understanding of what it means, you're not going to be able to get this question. Three positive integers, A, B, and C, such that the median is 11, mean is 9, range is 10. I'll let you try this one. And if you get this one done, attempt question 5 as well. A, B, and C, median is 11. Well, that tells you right away that B has to be 11. The range is 10, so C could be A plus 10. Algebraically, plugging those things in, you'll get A is 3. So the three numbers are 3, 11, and 13. For the next example, you've got a frequency chart. The median will be the middle term, since if we add up all the numbers, we get 75 in total. You can use that strategy of 75 plus 1 is 76 divided by 2 is 38. That's the 38th term. And then we go to our data here and say, I'm at 5, I'm at 14, I'm at 30. The 34th term falls within here. And so the median is 4. If I wanted to calculate the mean, this is what I would have to do algebraically. The number 1 appears 5 times. The number 2 appears 9 times. Add all of those up and divide by 75. Okay? Would this be a calculator question? Yes. Notice my answer is not to 3 sig figs because it's exact, and therefore I still have the equal sign. Would this be a question that you might think, my calculator's probably quicker. Think about all the stuff you have to type in here to figure out your average. Think about all the math you did in part A to figure out your median. Would it have been faster to type that into list 1 and list 2 and get your answer from your statistics? Yes. Okay? So one of the things on the calculator part of your exam that you're going to have to do often, or calculator parts of your test, is you're going to have to make that decision, okay, how would I do this without my calculator? Could I do this without my calculator? How long would that take? And then before you start doing that, you have to ask yourself, could I do this with my calculator, and how long would that take? Now that's a hard thing to do because sometimes we get a question like this one where we say to ourselves, I know how to do it without a calculator, and we just start. Because we're like, I know how to do this, and as soon as your brain tells you you know how to do something, you start doing it. Okay? One of the things that the calculator in the IB program, they want you to think about is, even if you can do it by hand, we want you to be able to do that, but if you can do it faster with technology, isn't that better? Okay? I know this is like, they don't want you to go away from not knowing how to do it without your calculator, because they design a whole bunch of questions like the ones we did before that really make you think. So you have to understand your material, but with that understanding is, if I can do something faster in another way, I'm going to do that. Okay? And so they design, your exam is 90 marks in 90 minutes. Part 1. Part 2, 90 marks in 90 minutes. Not a minute more. So if you can save 5 minutes somewhere along the line, you're going to need that. So throughout the year, we're going to be making you think that way. What is the way I can do this the fastest, the most efficient, the easiest? All right?